go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6:05 p.m. And I'm going to wait until Victoria gets here to approve our October minutes because we can always do that. Did everybody receive them that's on the call? Okay. Dylan, is there anyone here for public comment?
There is not, no.
Okay, and then let us know if that changes. How long do we have you, like right now or a couple minutes or?
Yeah, probably just about 10 minutes and then I need to take off.
Okay, and so then if anybody from the board wants to join the meeting, we're not going to really be able to let them in, are we?
No, you guys should all be able to come in without me doing anything.
That's handy.
Yep.
Are you able to delegate like the host role to somebody else in the meeting?
I can try, but I did set it up so all the members could come and go. It shouldn't be a problem. Yeah.
Okay, and if you want to make it for Mike to be the host on your way out, if that works, great. If not, then it sounds like we don't need it. Okay, let's do check-ins.
I just did it. Mike's the host too.
Sweet, look at that. You're so
There
efficient.
it is.
Okay.
I'm honored. Thank you.
Okay, these are fun things to tell our families, right? I'm the host. All right, so check-ins. Terry, anything you want to share how it's going? Sustainability things? You're on mute.
Duh, what can I say? Yeah, I should be muted all the time anyway. No, nothing to say other than I had another article in the tidings today. So.
Yeah, it's good. Thank you. Are you going to keep on doing that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Thanks.
That's it.
What was the topic? I didn't read it yet.
The
I'll
Willamette
have to
River.
read it. It's on the river's resilience as our own.
Okay. All right, Mike, Greg.
So I can go. I guess the biggest thing for me is that we got about 8 or 9 pumpkins in our pumpkin harvest this year, but the freeze that we just had put the pumpkins to an end. So that's what we get for this year, and we're looking forward to starting to eat them and turn them into tasty treats.
All right.
Nice. And I would say that my garden lasted longer than it ever has. Like we harvested our last zucchinis last week, and there's still peppers on the vine, and have more kind of greens, lettuce and kale, and beets and spinach at this point in the year than I've ever had. So the benefit of the warm fall was definitely demonstrated in my garden, although it's a little weird to just have the leaves finally beginning to fall in the backyard. I'm a little frightened about what the beginning of December is going to be like in terms of raking them all up.
Yep, you'll find out. It's gorgeous up here in Hood River. I mean, I'm really blown away by how much the leaves have been gorgeous all the way because everything was so dry this summer and I didn't expect to see the good colors. Interesting sustainability note at the hotel, which is like a lot of hotels, is they're not offering cleaning service or any maid service during the day unless you request it, which seems like it would help save some things. And then the room has paper cups for your coffee with plastic lids. I'm like, okay, you're in your room. And there's plastic wrapped around the paper cups. I don't know if it's to assure you that the paper cup is secure, but it's like, hey, now with more plastic. So it's interesting to see where steps are being taken to be more sustainable and then where there's more waste generated, which is kind of bizarre to me.
Sustainability meets hygiene.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and probably a lot of it is just COVID protection as well.
COVID generated a lot of garbage.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're going to come back to the meeting notes, and then on the agenda we have got, and we'll have Victoria check in. I love that she's resilient about getting back home to join the meeting. Annual reporting goal setting. My thought to start this process, and you guys can decide which direction you want to go. We can look at the notes that we had from our goal setting retreat and start there, or we can reverse engineer this, look at the annual report, you know, is everything else on track, and then fill in 1 or 2 goals to complete that report. Do you want to start with the report, or what do you think, Terry?
I was looking at the goals that the condensation of our retreat that Greg sent out, and there's a lot of stuff there. And I was thinking, it might be good to condense it down. I've got 4 areas. To first condense it down, and just let me read what I've got, and you can say yay or nay.
Terry, before you begin, I pretty much did that with categories that Kim had come up with on Sunday when we met.
Yeah.
So you might take a look at that as well.
Oh, I
But
did.
go ahead and share what you shared, but
Yeah,
compare and contrast. Yeah.
I looked at the ones you sent.
Okay, good.
I was trying to really get a condensation down of areas of concern.
Okay.
And one was energy, and I just had a statement after each one: reduce energy use and reduction or elimination of fossil fuel use. 2, natural areas: increase tree cover, native plantings, reduction and elimination of toxic chemicals. Number 3 is water, reduce runoff in concert with natural areas goal and by use of bioswales and reduce water usage. And 4, materials management, implement sustainable procurement policies and collection of commingled yard debris and compostables. I was just looking at the major areas and seeing what are the major goals in each of those areas.
Uh-huh.
And then maybe we could have tasks or items to work on underneath each one of those if we wanted to get that detailed. But that's just my thought. I was trying to condense things.
I like that.
Those would be goals for 2023 and our annual report.
Uh-huh.
But just a thought. So,
Well, and here's the reality of what's going to happen. This council, the goal is for them to say yes, so that you can continue on what you're working, get support where you're needed. And if there's something that there isn't staff time to do yet, at least it's on there. And then by the time the next council comes in, then you can go back, approach the council and say, hey, here's where we were. We would love it if you approve these goals. We're interested if there's other things that you have concerns with or questions about.
yeah.
Because it puts you in a good position to have it continued and save them a lot of time as they're trying to get up to speed quickly.
One thing I think I'd like to say in favor of the way that Greg has grouped his goals is that it makes it, I think, fairly clear what's expected in terms of city action and what falls more to us. So Greg has a heading of policy, and we don't make policy, the city does. And so the expectation there is like, oh, these are things that we are hoping that city council will take up and actually pursue some action towards.
But it seems like the 4 categories that Terry laid out could essentially be all fit under that first topic of policies, because each of the things that Terry talked about were actually policy related. So that might be one way to think about how we could kind of categorize the 6 or 7 items that I have laid out.
Well, and
Maybe
that's what goes in the report. I mean, we've got the annual report, the things that we did, and then the goals we're bringing forward really are more on that policy end. Yes.
Oh yeah, those should be the
Yeah.
ones that should
Yeah.
go into the report.
Okay.
Yeah, because the question they asked for the 2023 goal setting was, what issues do you think the council should be thinking about as they go into annual goal setting? And do you have recommendations about how the issues could be resolved?
Mhm.
So that was a question they asked on the annual report form.
Mhm.
So So recommendations about how issues could be resolved seems to be fairly focused.
So Terry, if you were to look at the 7 items that I've got underneath the policy section,
Mhm.
could you say a little bit how yours fit into that? So like the tree code revision clearly
Yeah.
fits under the natural,
That would be natural areas.
yeah,
Mhm.
as well as the
Um,
piece about the gray water systems.
Yeah, item 3 fits in the water.
Right,
Compost fits into the materials management.
right,
Capital improvements planning would be probably materials management, possibly.
right. Uh-huh.
Well, the full or part-time sustainability manager should be the broken record issue that we bring up every time we meet, every
Right,
time
right.
we submit something. That should never go away. Yeah, so. So we could give, for our annual report, we could give, a few major headings with a few bullet points underneath of some of the things that you have put down, Greg.
Yeah, so just like your kind of reduce energy, the natural area piece, the reducing runoff and materials management would all, be the 4 categories.
Mhm.
So I've got the annual report up. So if we can, because it sounds like we still need to kind of visit that in formulating this. I put the goal 1 as the hire a sustainability consultant first, because like what Natalie talked about at Milwaukee, that really helped them have an objective roadmap of somebody that knows how to make those sustainability strategies. And it would also help lay the groundwork for what the person they're hiring would be doing, so we can get the right person in. What is it they need to do, right? So that hiring that consultant, I think, would get us a bigger, um we get actions taken quicker because it would have a better framework of how to get all these things done. Goal 2, prioritizing that tree code update, that's simply asking goal 2 doesn't really require a lot of work. It's no work on our part. It's asking the council to prioritize it. Goal 3 would be what we're working on. Goal 4, with renewing membership for Columbia Clean Cities, that's just reminding them that this is something that would support our green fleet. So really, goal 2 and 4 don't require any work. It's just, if they say yes, that's agreeing that this is something that needs to move forward. Goal 1 is the big ask for the professional consultant, because that will help knit together everything else we're talking about. And Dylan was saying if we were specific, that might help the council, but when Terry and I testified to council, we were still broad enough in the categories that it helped us get into the right area. And I think that's what you're saying, Terry, right? That you're talking about it's under natural materials or it's under energy.
And those are all the categories that were part of the climate appendix, the climate change appendix.
Yeah. So we're all talking the same thing. It's about what's the approach to fill this in so that this current council will say, yes, make it so, and that you have something at the very beginning of the year to work on.
I guess the one question that I've got, Kim, with regard to the sustainability consultant is like what Natalie was describing was the hiring of like that group in Eugene who basically helped them come up with the climate action plan.
Yes.
And so I don't know what we would be asking for in terms of the sustainability consultant, unless we were asking them to kind of, it seems like there needs to be a specific task that the consultant would be responsible for completing. And it seems like what you just described is so general that it would be hard to actually sell it to the council.
Can
And
you Yeah, no, I hear you. Can you ask Natalie? Can you follow up with her and ask her what we should ask for in that to get the most traction?
Uh-huh.
Because I hear what you're saying. I mean, like we need the consultant. He wrote a climate action plan, and the things that I was hearing Natalie talk about was how they were able to strategize the current city resources, the current budget, the current staff, with where they were trying to go and make the best use of those resources with the budget constraints and the time constraints.
Hmm.
Because we don't know what we need them to do. I mean, we know what we'd like them to do, but we don't, there's a lot more moving parts.
I think we would need to think a little bit about how to sell this too, because in a sense, there is a sustainability action plan that exists at the moment that was created by previous versions of this body here.
Mhm.
I worry that someone might look at that and say, don't we have this already?
Right, but we did it by ourselves, which is impressive, but we're not, I mean, we have sustainability understanding, but it's not the same as somebody um that's doing it with, from an overarching perspective. I think we did a great job.
Well, I think Mike is talking about the Sustainability Action Plan, which, what you described on Sunday had been developed by people who really were sustainability professionals. And so I think that Sustainability Action Plan actually is substantial. And so from that standpoint, there is something in place. And so I guess the question would be, we need somebody in the city hall to really kind of basically be the point person for a lot of this action. And I'm not clear in my own mind that somebody who would be just kind of coming in and acting as a consultant for a couple months would necessarily be able to do that.
They may not even need to be for a couple months. My vision of that is having somebody coming in, evaluating what we have in our plan, where we're trying to go, and a strategy. So then that also simultaneously lays the groundwork for the sustainability professional we were promised for how many years, Terry? And I think one of the challenges in cities is that we haven't had somebody in that role. I mean, we had Brianna for a short time. Brenna.
Yeah.
But you're still walking into a new role of people that don't clearly know how to understand that, so that the hiring process, we don't just need a sustainability person. They need to be able to have a roadmap to hit the ground running. Like, yes, there's these goals, but how does it work with the rest of the city? How does it work with emergency management? How do you set up the new staff person for success?
What if in goal number 1, we try to keep it a little general and say, hire a sustainability / emergency management professional to yada, 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 and submit a proposal to this to city by February 2023. Then in the proposal to hire a professional, we can list all the items that they need to do. Rather than put it in the goals document here, say, this is what we're going to do, and you're going to get a proposal for this person come February.
I like that.
It's an easier step for the city to commit to, I think.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we'll ask around and see what people will offer to us in this
Yeah,
regard.
we don't have to come up with all the tasks right now, but we can say, yeah, you need one.
Well, and that's the thing. If you look at all the goals that are in the climate action plan with the 2040 plan, there's some things that you can start later, but some of those things need to happen today. So
Mhm.
it's like having somebody that can look at our climate action plan and say, what action items do you need to take this year? And which ones do you need to take next year? And, to meet these goals.
Yeah. Because the SAB and the city council, we can pick through things and say, oh yeah, this is cool, we should do this. But that's not an organized plan. There's no system to that. We need someone who could come in and evaluate all the documents that we've got right now and all the goals that we supposedly have, and then prioritize those, put them in a logical plan. We can't do that. We're not paid to do that. We don't have the time to do that. We can suggest it needs to be done. So anyway, my 3 cents. By the way, Kim, in goal number 4, I think we should go for the $1,200 version.
Well, let's not put the number in there because that was something that city manager told me off the cuff. And then when I looked up it, the numbers were higher. So let's just take the dollar number out, say gold, level if needed. That way we're not locked into a
Yeah.
specific dollar amount. It's setting the table so that should we need that support, that's been brought forward. And we may not want an electric street sweeper. I'm at an APWA leadership. That's why I'm here, is we're teaching the next leaders, as they move up in public works. And somebody just said they lost an electric sweeper because it got hit by a car, but they weren't sorry because they were disappointed with how it was performing. So, so it's nice to have this support of an organization that is it the right tool for the job?
So I think my suggestion would be to take that piece in terms of the membership in that organization, make that the second goal, and then focus on the kinds of policy issues that we have that Terry had raised, and kind of go through that. So Kim, could you kind of rephrase the goal, the fourth goal that Terry and you were just talking about?
So just say renew. So if I take the dollar number out, I'll just say renew base membership in Columbia, Willamette, Clean Cities, and support tier upgrade for grant writing assistant as needed. Move that up to goal 2.
Can you talk more quickly so that I can actually write it down?
No, you don't have to write it down, Greg. I've got it open.
Okay, so if you could send it to me then.
You got it.
Okay.
I missed something. Why do you want to move that to goal 2?
Mostly so that the remaining goals are the ones that are all tied into policy decisions.
Okay.
Thank you for being resilient, Victoria, and doing the heroic thing and rushing home. Good to see you.
So embarrassing to be the only one there and the door locked.
No, don't be embarrassed.
Yeah. I almost joined you. I almost joined you, Victoria.
Okay. So then goal 3, prioritizing the CDC code on the planning docket. We want to leave that. Asking council to do that.
In terms of the tree code?
To prioritize it, because that goal 3 is prioritize the CDC code on the docket.
Is there a document of these goals that I'm not seeing? I've got a draft report from 2022 that lists a different set of goals, and
Greg sent it today.
No, didn't I send it? I sent it right after our thing. 2022 annual report draft, and then it says 2023 goals on the inside.
Yep.
Do you see that? It's at the top, says 2022 SAB annual report draft, and it was dated 11/13. So right after our little recap, I sent it out to the group. I swear I did.
Yeah, you did. I got it.
Do you want me to resend it, Mike?
let me look here.
Do you have it, Victoria?
I have several. I have several things printed.
It's a draft of our annual report. There's some items in red that we
That's what I've been working off. That's the thorough.
Yep, that's the most current. Yep.
Yeah. Also the most thorough.
It's super thorough.
Yeah, and there was another one that was earlier that was the the 22 annual report draft.
November 13th.
Looking at the one that came in on Tuesday from Terry.
Yes.
Kim has a more fleshed out one.
I don't think I have that.
November 13th it was sent.
Yeah.
So an earlier version, but it's more fleshed out. 13th, meeting prep.
It was the meeting prep, so that's red, but it was the first thing I sent out. So it was on November 13th, and I had the agenda, yeah.
So what's going to happen to that first one that's from the 13th? Nothing?
Editing. No, I'm editing. It's just a draft. So
it's in flux.
Okay.
It's in flux. Okay.
Okay. I'm on the same page now.
Oh, good. You'll feel better.
Two versions of it going around. I was looking at the one that came in most recently.
Okay. So we're sticking with goal 1 for hiring a sustainability professional.
Mhm.
We'll wordsmith that.
Has there been a speech to the council about why this matters?
There will be when we go up there together.
Okay, because we just keep saying it, saying it, saying it. We just do it again.
Okay. Yeah, this is what we're doing, Victoria, so that by the end of the meeting, we'll have clear goals, and then we'll collectively decide if we're going to testify to council on the 5th of December or the 12th. They have meetings both nights, and that I will ask, or Greg will ask that we're on the agenda for 15 minutes. And then as board co-chairs, you know, I'm the SAB pass to say, here's just a quickie of our annual report and why these things are important. And then Greg and Mike will bring it home. And then you, Victoria, whoever's here from the board, can just briefly go up and say why it's important to you.
It seems like our goals really ought to be somehow tied into our conversation. The ones that we present to the council ought to
They
be
will.
tied into our conversation a month ago. And right now, these 4 goals are not necessarily those goals. So it seems like we really ought to somehow come back to the kinds of things that we were talking about at the outset in terms of the categories that Terry was laying out, and then make sure that those are included. And just for your information, I will not be available December 5th, but will be available December 12th. So we really need to, like,
We'll do it on the 12th then. Okay,
yeah.
we need you.
Okay. So do we choose which day we go?
Yeah, but I mean, like, are you available on the 12th?
Yes, but not on the 5th.
All right, so we're going on the 12th. Are we all good with that?
Yeah.
Terry, you're good with that?
What time?
I believe so.
We'll figure it out, probably 6 o'clock, but we'll ask to be on the agenda as early as possible.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So it seems like, just to get us back on track, hire the sustainability professional, enroll the city in the Columbia Willamette Clean Cities Coalition, and then perhaps move on to the policy issues that we really want the city to take into consideration. So the whole issue with regard to reducing energy, the natural areas, the runoff and materials management, and then basically integrate the things that were that came out of our conversation in those, so that there could be those that would make 6 goals, and then still have the piece that's here in terms of just continuing to I would say offer the Sustainability Education Series workshop. I don't know if we want to expand it, but at least offer it. And then, you know, we could potentially lay out the specific topics that we're interested in dealing with.
We can. I mean, I think just I would keep it super brief so that we can really hit the big stuff. Is
Yep.
that we are interested in having continued city support for the education series, because even though it doesn't cost money, it still costs money because it's staff time. You know, it's setting it up, and as long as council supports it, you can give them a list of things in January. I mean, you've got time to come up with the topics, but saying that we would like your support in continuing it.
Yeah.
It's low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should keep the annual report goals. You should keep them succinct.
Mm-hmm.
But
so actually, what's here in terms of goal 3 with regard to Sustainability Education Series, no more than that.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you want you want goal 3 to be continue the education series?
Yeah, just say, you know, continue with the Sustainability Education Series workshops.
That's an easy yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you want goal 4 to be prioritize the tree code?
I think I would actually put the education series last.
Okay,
Move on to the policy things next.
Okay, so we have goal 1 is the sustainability professional, wordsmithing that. Goal 2 is renew the Columbia Willamette. Goal 3 remains to prioritize the tree code, asking them to move that up in priority. The last thing will be the the education series, and then we're getting back to the meat.
Well, I think we also want to include, what we had talked about with regard to materials management and reducing energy in natural areas, all of those as well.
Do you think those 4 items that I mentioned would be under a single goal?
I think they're separate.
Just, I thought they were separate also. So there was 4 that I mentioned. I don't know if you want to have 8 goals or 10 goals.
We can have as many goals as you want, because the thing with, I mean, it's really what's attainable in a year. Something like Columbia Willamette, that's a yes, and it's done. You renew the membership, and then it's there for support.
Yeah.
It's not something. There's a bunch of stuff that's not ongoing, and the having council prioritize the tree code. That's something that we may end up asking them every month. Is it now? Is it now? Is it now? It's those aren't things that require a lift. That's more of a, this is important to accomplish in this next year.
Same thing with hiring the sustainability professional.
Right.
So there are just a bunch of things here so far that are just kind of statements more than anything else, not necessarily works. So the natural areas, prioritizing the tree code, and hopefully that's already been done. And then kind of moving on to, let's say, the you talked about reducing runoff and just water policies, Terry. So could you rephrase that, or just say like
under
what
water, reduce runoff in concert with our natural areas goal, and by the use of bioswales and reduced water usage.
Okay, let me address that just because I'm in that nerd environment right now. That would be our bioswale program working? Because I don't think you're triggered off in a bioswale unless you have new construction. So is if like, does that policy need to change? Because there's a lot of stormwater management that's required, and we have a stormwater management master plan. So that's my question. Is there something in the stormwater master plan or our stormwater management that needs to be
Well,
because I mean, it's Oregon. There are state laws about runoff that have to be, it's
Yeah.
a requirement.
there doesn't have to be anything in the current master plan in order for it to be implemented, because you can retrofit streets that don't have sidewalks right now, like they're doing in Portland in the southeast. They've installed a lot of bioswales in streets that are already built. It wasn't new construction, so that's doable. Because the city has the will and the time to do it.
Well, and the other thing I found out about our city too is that the right-of-way maintenance is on the adjacent homeowner. So some of these things may get into, is it in the right-of-way next to someone's property and then they have to maintain it? So that's my question. We can ask for it, but is it addressed somewhere else in the
Yeah.
city?
Well, once again, that's a detail that I don't think we can get into. We can say there is a need for this reason. And then if it's up to the homeowner or the city, that's not for us to decide. It's needed. That's what we do. We refer things that are needed regarding sustainability and resilience. How the city figures it out or not is up to them.
Right, but I'm asking, is it needed in a way that's not occurring right now?
I think so. There's far too much runoff.
Maybe a different way of asking this is, what's the specific ask of the city?
Right.
Are they to reevaluate a policy? Are they to invest in new capital projects to replace existing stormwater facilities? Like, what are we asking them? I think maybe a starting point would be asking them to look at their policies and just
Mhm.
see if their policies are not exactly supporting this in the way that maybe we would want them to. Because I think the city is going to maybe bristle if we're just immediately saying, we want you to spend a bunch of money on this.
Yeah, well, the city's going to bristle anyway, because when I approached them about the new Main Street development, when it was a scorched earth, about where the bioswales. They said, oh, it's not our responsibility, it's ODOT's responsibility. So the city totally reneged on that when they had the chance to do something about it. So I'm concerned that the city, this is really low on their list of priorities. It needs to
Although
go higher.
I am seeing, the requirement that new developments include bioswales.
Mhm.
Because there's certainly 3 or 4 bioswales down where I am right now that have just been built in the last couple of years.
Mhm.
So somehow it does seem to be in the code with regard to residential development.
Mhm.
The city may not be kind of trying to do much as they build their own, engage in their own projects, but at least they are requiring it otherwise.
Oh, well,
Well, no, I mean, Terry, it's a good
Yeah.
point. We're trying to protect natural resources.
Mhm.
And I'm asking, we're collectively, like, if you see that there's too much of something, is what the policies or the infrastructure we have not addressing it? And if it is the infrastructure, there is a cost. And then, like Mike said, what are we asking of them so that we're clear on the ask? Or that we're clear on our recommendation. And maybe this comes back to, instead of, like being prescriptive, is asking to revisit our policies for stormwater management.
Would it be enough to look at the code to see that?
well, who's going to do that?
It's a staff thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like, and I think the challenge too, because we live in a rainy place where we have these big rain events, there's some rain events that, where they're designed for 100-year storm. I mean, most things are designed for a certain occasional high level thing, and we're seeing a lot more extreme weather where it's a 200-year storm or a 500-year storm. So there's some things that are going to exceed the norms of design standards where it looks excessive. And we may need to design things to a different standard. But that's getting into engineering. So that's why I'm asking, like, are we asking you to change how you're doing engineering? Are we asking for a different infrastructure?
Well, yeah, I would just avoid getting into the weeds on any of this stuff and say, okay, if the use of bioswales is not, a major item, then strike it. But I see it as being major because all streets run off into drains and run into the river. There are a lot of petroleum products on the streets. Bioswales help to reduce those. So if it has to be a proposal next year with all the details, so be it. If not, then we strike it and move on to something else.
But it seems like, oh, go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, maybe there's some way of formulating this goal that, gets this notion in front of council and starts the ball rolling in some regard. Maybe we can ask them to set some sort of infiltration goal,
Mhm.
or to evaluate the relative proportion of water that is actually being infiltrated into the ground. And then after that is known, to ask them to set some goal in association with that. It puts them in front of it. It puts it in front of council, and then gives them a sense of like, well, this is something that ought to be worked on. I mean, this may not be known to them in any regard, and yeah, I think if we can ask something that maybe makes it more of an issue present in their minds, that might be an effective way to kind of get the ball moving on this.
Is that a baseline measurement then that you would be asking them to determine if there even is one already?
Yeah, it might exist.
Well, they're
Hard for me to
clearly,
say.
trying to get folks to make bioswales, like with new developments as I was talking about. But what's not clear to me is like whether the city sees it as a value in terms of like when they repave streets, for example. I know there was a whole neighborhood, 10, 15 years ago in Seattle, where they built multiple bioswales. And it was just part of the street design of an already established neighborhood where a lot of the runoff ran into Lake Washington. And it made a huge difference, but it really was like a major investment on the part of the city of Seattle to do it. And so I guess the question is, how much is the city really willing to do that? Let's say in my neighborhood, to make sure that the houses like in the old Willamette area those particular streets have bioswales so that we're reducing the runoff into the Willamette and the Tualatin. But that would really mean like a significant investment in the creation of bioswales, throughout that area, as well as real efforts to protect the wetland, which acts as a major kind of a filtration device before the water from the hillside gets down into the river. So I think that I think that there are things that could be said, but it really is a kind of a major issue in terms of expense.
And it could be a very big financial impact. And Terry, I mean, we've got other aspects of storm drainage too. I just was talking to someone that said that they have daylighted, like a dry creek that's sometimes wet where it runs off of one area, across their neighbor's property, down on theirs, and then it's causing some erosion near a creek because measures haven't been taken in the right of way. So there's complexities to having the system be functional. And I don't, and so there's financial impacts of how far do you take it and what needs to be revisited. So coming back to what Mike said, maybe if we can distill that down to, I don't know who does, I mean, I don't know how often the master plan gets done. I don't, a gap analysis of, is it bioswales, is it prescriptive, or is it, how is the system working between what's naturally occurring and what's adjacent to our built environment? And like Greg said, that could be a significant investment. That could be what's happening with the next development, or that could be retrofitting things.
Well, my intention was not to deal with the financial vagaries of this whole subject. My idea was just to put a sentence in regarding reducing water runoff.
Oh, the thing you started with, let's go back to that.
Yeah,
Okay.
just reduce water runoff. I mean,
Okay.
bring it to their attention.
Okay.
In concert with natural areas and by use of bioswales and reduce water usage. Simple statement, puts it in front of them. And what they do with it, we're not getting into
Reduce water runoff. Okay. All right. We'll go back to that. Thank you for the simplicity. I'm going into the weeds because I'm sitting with the people that do the work. So thank you.
So when we're thinking about these goals, they're really goals that we want the city to meet, the city council to meet, not necessarily our goals,
Right.
our own work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, but Greg, every year the council says, here's the goals we have that for SAB to work on. So we're saying we've done all this work this year. This is what we recommend you approve for us. And they can say, yes, continue on. Or no, we want you to work on something else.
Yeah, and this year it's a little, yeah. Sorry, Greg, go ahead.
I was just going to say, except for the fact that our meeting last month was really focused on the goals that we hope to actually address.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a little backwards this year because they're meeting so late to establish their goals. I think that's why they made this statement or asked this question in the forum. Do you have recommendations about how the issues could be resolved? So they're asking us basically this year, what are the issues that we need to work on?
Did I use an old version of the annual report?
Well, I don't know. You may have because I got a brand new one from Dylan.
Oh,
Yeah,
Dang it.
I got a brand new
Will
one
you
from Dylan.
send that to me? You probably have a clear.
Well, I sent it to you, but I eliminated that piece, but I can send it to you again.
Okay, please
Yeah.
do. So that I'll copy this stuff into the new one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're 6:45. And I know this is frustrating, and thank you all for navigating this, because we did do a lot of work at our last meeting to see what are the things that are important. And this is important to be able to distill this down into something tangible, bite-sized pieces that's achievable.
Mhm.
And we can get there.
Yeah.
Right. I know we can.
Always do.
We do.
we do.
Anyone ever proposed the idea that the city publish sustainability metrics in terms of, say, energy usage, natural gas usage, water usage, stormwater runoff? Because I know we ask for these like audits and we want to be able to track these things relative to 2040. And I doubt there's any, statutory requirement that these things are reported by the city, but I know that, many larger cities and states and corporations do publish sustainability reports. And instead of having to go back to the city, year after year and ask for this data, maybe we propose that the city just undertake the effort to do it proactively itself and publish some sort of annual sustainability report on its operations.
Interesting.
Do you have an
Certainly sounds
example of one that you've seen that you liked?
I could dig around. If you go to any publicly traded, corporation, they're going to have a corporate sustainability report that it covers all of their emissions. It covers their water usage, at least the responsible ones that are trying to, be good corporate citizens or give the impression of being a good corporate citizen. I imagine that the city of Portland probably does something in the same vein. Instead of asking, like, can you give us this data? Like the city, just as a way of being transparent, I think ought to just do this.
Well, if they did, they'd have to have sustainability professional. to do it.
Maybe that would motivate their pursuit of such a position.
That would be clearly something that person could do. Ask for that.
I think the challenge is that it just takes a lot of time, a lot of staff time to track it.
Yeah.
And I just remember Natalie saying, be careful about being too explicit in terms of the goals that you're trying to actually address, particularly as it relates to carbon emissions.
Remind me why she said that.
Because it takes so much time and it's too expensive.
And so then they'll say no.
Well, or if you're basically requiring somebody to do it, who is your sustainability manager, they're spending altogether too much time gathering the data rather than doing the work that needs to be done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and even on a note for grants, as much as we love talking about grants, I love talking about grants and getting those opportunities for funding things you may not have had. One of the aspects of grants is how many strings are attached to it. How much documentation does it take? And there's some cities, if the grant's smaller, it may not be worth their time because their administration costs to apply for it and to document, to report on it are more than what you're getting in the grant. So, it's having that balance of how do we meet the goals with the budget we have or with grants, and do we have the staff to manage it? And we don't know all those things. So coming back to the goals we're suggesting to council, what is it that we want them to do? We want them to use the natural resources better. We want to use energy better. We could have a simple goal of recommending tiered water pricing. And that's not something we have to work on. That just gets handed back to the utility advisory board. But we're one of the few cities that don't have tiered water pricing. That's epic. So there's no incentive for somebody that's a top tier user to pay any more or to make water efficiency. That's one sentence. We could request the goal to have tiered water pricing. We don't have to work on it. If they say yes, then it gets handed off to them.
And that is one of the ones that I included into the policy list that I sent out.
Yeah.
So that could be part of the natural resource. And actually, if there's tiered water pricing, it might at least reduce some of the runoff from people who are not watering their lawns too much. So
there is runoff from that.
Yeah.
Tremendous amount.
So that fits in nicely, Terry, with reducing runoff.
Mm-hmm.
So if we got the natural resources, that includes the reducing runoff and tiered water pricing.
Is it all right if I share my screen real quick?
Sure.
Please do.
Show what the city of
You're the
Portland is
host.
doing. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So is my screen visible for everyone?
Not yet.
Nope.
Oh, I have to click share also. So the city of Portland maintains a sustainable city government dashboard.
Uh-huh.
And there's not a lot of information here. I mean, they just, on an annual basis, it looks like they say what their city operations carbon emissions are. They talk about energy efficiency, fleet emissions. And obviously the city of Portland is a much larger, municipal entity than the city of Westland. But
Right.
even something that's like a very, very pared down version of this, how much water is the city using? How much electricity is the city using? How much natural gas is the city using?
Uh-huh.
Like, when people talk about setting goals, there's the whole, like, what is the acronym? SMART, I think. Specific, measurable, attainable,
Yeah.
realistic, and time bound. Like,
Right.
if we're asking the city to, make progress on these various metrics, like, we need them to have a sense of where they're at with them.
Yeah.
And it may not be a lot more work on our part. The work is setting this up, but if it's using data that you already have, it's updating that data.
Right.
Anyway, I thought that this would be
No, that's a great
worth pointing out.
example.
Mhm.
You bring that to their
That makes me
attention.
think that, actually including that as a goal. So city publishes an annual dashboard with regard to water usage, electricity usage, and gas usage. That would be helpful.
Yeah, and just throw a couple graphs together. Like,
Yeah. And, we could, if somebody came and talked with us about it, we could just simply show them what Portland has done. It would be interesting to see like whether, Gresham and Milwaukee and Beaverton and Tualatin have done something similar to what Portland has done.
yeah, I can dig into that. All right.
It feels like we're really close to having a good one or two goals here to complete this, to have them succinct.
Mhm. So I guess I'd just given what we had talked about before, the materials management piece would be good to include as well.
Okay, so looking back at what you sent Greg, not worried about the education series because that stuff, I mean, that's great to have, but I don't think we have to get into
It's
that.
just the policy.
Right. Just the policy.
Mhm.
We've got the sustainability manager on there, starting with a roadmap to do that.
I don't see anything here about, I mentioned reduce energy use and the reduction and elimination of fossil fuel use. I know that's being dabbled in by the city, but that seems to be pretty important to me.
Well, and it seems like we could reiterate the value of, what's been on earlier goals with regard to the city fleet.
Well, the city committed to electrifying their fleet a while ago.
Mhm.
So
I kicked myself for not getting the name of this company, but a couple months ago I saw a landscape company on our street, and it had some kind of sustainable name, but they used all electric tools, blowers, trimmers, mowers, the works. It was all electric. They had a bank of batteries in their truck that they used for their tools, and it lasts them all day for their jobs.
Like a gray truck.
They were rocking, and they were all electric. And I hear from people that, oh, the tool, they run out of juice and it's too much to carry the batteries around, yada, yada, yada. There's always naysayers, but there's a company out there making lots of money doing that very thing.
So
Was it a gray truck with a trailer?
Could have been, I don't remember the name. Mike, I really don't.
Might be the people that I hired this year.
Yeah.
So it sounds like what we could do is basically request that the city begin to electrify all of their landscaping equipment, as
Yeah.
well as getting an electric fleet.
I know Councilor Relier specifically inquired about the electrification of landscaping equipment
Mhm.
when Terry and Kim went to present at council.
Mhm.
So I'm sure there's an appetite for it, at least among some of the members.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I think with regard to the energy piece, just encourage the council to continue its efforts to electrify our fleet and build probably more just charging stations at, perhaps like at the library, for example, there could be a charging station. Explore the possibility of including charging stations on utility poles, as Natalie was talking about, and then the electrification of landscaping equipment.
Yeah. I mean, if that's one of the goals we as a group have, then those goals should be advertised to the council.
Right. Well, I think it's a goal from the past, and
It is.
obviously hasn't been met.
No.
But I think that's one thing to just kind of reiterate.
Well, I like the way you phrased it, to encourage the council to continue.
Right.
Yeah.
What do we look like for our goals?
Okay, so goal 1 is to hire the consultant, to support, a strategy for, we'll have to wordsmith that together here, but to support a strategy for a sustainability / emergency management staff person and to meet our goals.
And remember
Is-
that Dylan is the emergency management person right now.
Oh, right.
Yeah. It's kind of
Probably not saying emergency manager, talk about like a sustainability coordinator.
Great.
interim. And while we're on that goal, I mentioned letting them know that a proposal would be submitted to council detailing this goal in January and February, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I mean, just for the success of this, the whole push for this right now is so that this current sitting council can approve this, and you can all focus on accomplishing something between now and it may be June of next year. You're not having an election till March. And I don't know if the mayor is going to be selected at that time or if that's another special election. So you basically have 2 councilors in January. And then you're gonna have to have a new group form and gel, and they will be looking at what's next. So after December, it's it's keep doing what you're doing until you have a new council in place. So it's like, what can you what do you want them to say? Yes, we've got a short-term and a long-term plan. Can you work on as a group between now and next June? And then hopefully the incoming council will say, wow, everybody, this looks great, continue on.
Well, it sounds as though with regard to policy, there's not going to be a lot happening until the end of the spring anyway. But it really suggests that what we really ought to be kind of focusing in on is like the education piece and the specific individual things that we thought that we could potentially do.
There's a lot you can get done. It's just if we need the council to prioritize staff time for something heavy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
we need to be realistic about what that looks like. For now.
So are we looking to massage our goals in anticipation of what may or may not happen on the council? Or are we looking to submit our goals based on what we feel our goals are?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So we should stick to that, and let the chips fall where they may as far as new council members, but this is the proposed goals from SAB.
But it was coming back to what you were saying, Terry, is do we come back to them with a proposal in February? Because it could be I don't know what it's going to look like. It could be a party of 2, it could be more people, or
Yeah.
you just do it.
Well,
that's
I
fine.
just threw out February, but if it's important to us, then we just do it. That's what we're here for, right? And whoever's on the council can deal with it, but this is the group that's working their butts off in this city to get you ideas to help protect this city. And whoever's on the council needs to deal with it or not. But the goals have been submitted to you. We've done our job. I mean, we can't anticipate who's going to be on the council, who's going to be mayor, what they're going to do, what they're not going to do. But the given is SAB submitted their goal. My humble opinion.
and getting a yes at the end of December that yes, these look good, keep working on it, that you've got things that you can continue on with or without staff support.
Yeah. If nothing else, you've got a to-do list, and if you choose to do some of them, fine. Okay. I want to review. So our goals are, do we have our goals fleshed out here? Or-
Ish, and I normally have two screens to work on, so I'm trying to flip back and forth, looking at what Greg presented. So again, what Greg's talked about is tree code revision, make recommendations to council. So we've got that on there. We're telling them prioritize this, which they could. We're asking the utility advisory board to modify pricing, so that can again come under that natural resources. That gray water, is that for Greg, is that for like existing buildings or new buildings or?
Well, I basically just took the note, from what was talked about a month ago. And somebody talked basically about coming up with a policy where you could either have new construction or retrofitting for the
Okay.
gray water. So I didn't suggest that. It
Oh,
just
got
was
it.
one of
Okay.
the items that had come up. And I was just basically trying to integrate what was part of our conversation a month ago.
What if, since we are in the seed planting business, under the water section where I said reduce runoff in concert with natural areas goal and by use bioswales and reduce water usage and gray water systems.
Perfect.
It's
Okay.
in front of them, it's been said, and
Yeah.
some of them will say, well, what is a gray water system? Great.
Where is
Point
that?
to begin.
So we're gonna include the runoff,
Well,
gray water. What was the other thing, Terry?
Oh. Reduce runoff in concert with our natural areas goal and by the use of bioswales, reduced water usage and gray water systems.
Okay. So if you can help wordsmith that one. I'm not typing it verbatim in here. I'm
That's
just
quite
kind
all
of.
right. I can send you that stuff.
Is everybody good with that? Putting that together?
and then I guess just include the goal with regard to energy reduction, as we talked about, with regard to moving to an EV fleet, electric landscaping equipment, and more EV charging stations.
Can we add including fast chargers?
Yeah.
Um, down by the car wash, right off the freeway would be a really good place for one.
Well, and there was something where ODOT was looking for, remember somebody came in with PGE where they were looking for putting charging in public right away? And I think ODOT was looking for something, like two places in Clackamas County and the historical element area, I think made the short list because they're looking for places with businesses nearby. I don't think it's a DC fast charger, Victoria, sorry, but at least it's something in there.
Having just
Okay.
driven lately, long distance.
Okay, so we've got the energy, we've got the natural resources. So without having it completely wordsmithed right now, Terry can help with the something concise on that energy or
I
on
just sent you an email with my notes.
got it. Okay.
The last thing that hasn't been included, that was suggested a month ago, was just encouraging the city council to deal with issues tied in sustainability considerations and capital improvement planning. And it seemed like that would be a place where just making a declaration or a statement, a resolution like Natalie had talked about would be potentially useful. That wouldn't necessarily cost anything, but what I'd written down was just simply encourage city council to adopt a resolution aimed at increasing sustainability considerations in capital improvement planning. And that would be a pretty simple goal to include that would take into consideration things that we had talked about a month ago.
The nice thing, yes, and the nice thing about that, Greg, is like if we can get like I sent an email for Victoria and Terry. I sent an email to Energy Trust today to see if they could have a speaker at the January meeting to see what things that our city might qualify for the areas that we're looking for, and what things we can do as a city for reducing the energy usage. So having a simple goal like that, Greg, of saying, that you support this allows for, as that new information comes in, to go, hey, you can implement this, and there's
Yeah.
support for doing it.
So I was really kind of looking for things that would not cost money
Right.
or require a lot of effort on the part of the city council, but do exactly what you were just describing. Kind of
Yeah, you've opened the door of like,
Yeah.
yes, this is important to us,
Yeah.
and then we can say, hey, we connected with this program, and then just like you witnessed Terry and I do when we testified to council, you're bringing them a proposal, and they're like, wow, that's great, because we got more information between a goal and how it looked.
Right.
Okay, so I don't have that clearly defined right now, but what I'm hearing is that we're there-ish.
Yeah, I think so.
Ish.
Okay.
So if
Fine.
you've got it, and I will include like what you write down for the goal in the minutes. So basically like what you have kind of synthesized can just simply be repeated in the minutes.
Okay, so again, we're good on, just so I can go back and get my head in there, because I've been in a lot of topics today. So we're all good on goal one with that professional consultant and having that full-time person that needs to be wordsmithed. Goal two, renewing membership for Columbia Willamette Clean Cities. Goal three, prioritize the tree code, because that again is just reminding council to do it. Goal four would be that natural, super awesome thing that Terry sent me about the runoff, the reevaluating the policy, investing, new capital projects. So that's that natural resources. Goal five would be on the energy side. So continuing the fleet electrification, EV charging infrastructure. For the love of everything holy, a fast charger somewhere. And
I would say the sixth one is the dashboard that Mike was talking about.
yeah, the dashboard's great.
Yeah.
Goal
Yeah.
6.
And then the seventh would be the one that I just mentioned in terms of unless that really goes into the issue with materials management.
What was goal 7?
Oh, increasing sustainability considerations in capital improvement planning, just a resolution to that effect. What we'd just been talking about before you summarized everything.
Resolution for capital improvement projects.
Yeah,
And then
it's number 7 on the list that I sent out.
got it. Okay. And then I'm just going to put a note back here, Greg. And then goal 8 will be to continue the SAB education series.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty meaty.
Yeah. Lots of meat on those bones. So, question of the moment, since Kim and I both sent out proposed 2023 annual reports, if you folks would look under the accomplishments section of both of those, there may be, obviously there are repeats, there may be a couple of different ones. So whoever is going to massage this may want to combine those two.
So
I think I captured it, didn't I, Terry? With that we testified to council, that we completed the goals.
Oh, yeah,
and
no,
approved-
no. What I'm saying is I may have a couple of different ones in mind than yours, so
Oh,
you can just combine those if there are any different ones.
can we figure that out right now?
Well, we could. Does everybody have my version?
It's 7:15. We got 15 minutes.
Yeah.
yeah, I still think it would be nice to be able to do something with regard to just kind of thinking through the planning for the ed offerings next year, and just kind of thinking about what things we might want to be able to have in January, because somehow we need to get started on that if we're going to have any presentations in
Well,
winter and spring.
while I look through these items under accomplishments, why don't you guys go ahead with that? And this won't take me very long, about a minute.
Just to interview
Well-
Kim's and yours, okay.
do we still have somebody for December? Are we gonna have because that'll help me finish up the report for our accomplishments. Because it depends if we meet or not, or if we have that extra one. Weren't we talking about like a low waste for Christmas or something?
Yeah, that was one of the ideas. It was. I don't know if it,
But was anybody found?
Or was that from charity?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Charity suggested both the idea and that she might present on it, but I
If
don't want
she's
to
good with
rope her
it,
into that when
we
she's
could,
not here.
yeah, well, we can just ask her if that's okay, so we can finalize this to see if that's a December or not. Are you, if the person, if I hear back from or if we hear back from the Energy Trust, are you good with having them come in January? Because I think that would be super timely to help talk about what opportunities there are for energy, or energy reduction.
And were they going to talk to us, or were they going to be part of the education presentation?
Well, you want them do you want them at a meeting instead for like a meeting presentation instead of
I like
education?
that better.
I think it's
Okay,
more appropriate here.
Yeah.
all right, so then they won't be the education series. Ideally, they'd be here in January as a speaker. And I think if you
For
can line up
us.
for you,
Yeah. Right. Right.
but if you can get good speakers at every meeting, that really helps back up and advance your goals. So use the meetings for speakers for the goals, and then use the education series for all those other topics to hit. Mike, Greg, Victoria, you want to do top 3 for January to March for education?
I think we could
Assuming Charity can do the low waste holiday wrap thing for December.
And do you want to call Charity, Kim, or shall I call her?
How about you, caller?
Okay.
Thank you.
And I could, like, I think I sent out that film of the guy from Oregon State.
Yeah.
I could do that in January and then just have a conversation, because it seems like it would be an easy enough thing to show online, and then just
Okay.
open it up after that finishes up for a conversation. It's
So
really,
you're the education part for January?
I could be the education person for January.
Sweet.
And that's the number 5 on this education series list?
Yes.
Excellent. That sounds great.
Okay,
And if you have a
great.
chance to see it, this guy's at Oregon State, and so there's all of these shots from Oregon. And so it really makes it very kind of germane to our own circumstances.
We might
Okay.
need to just double check that we have permission to air it.
Okay.
I'm sure we
I'll
probably do, but that might be a good thing to just cross our
it's a good
T
point.
on.
You never know, he may show up as a guest speaker on your education movement.
Right.
And then we could invite him.
Yeah. How fun would that be?
Bill
Okay, so you
Whipple.
got January. February.
So many of these things do not fit for the middle of the winter, but number 4, the value of the urban canopy, could be done in the middle of winter.
I would totally do that because you're already talking about that for your goals, to get that tree canopy on there, and
Yeah.
that'll really help pave that way to keep the conversation going. Do you have a speaker for that or somebody in mind?
No, I have no idea at all.
I wonder whether Natalie would be willing to do that.
Ooh, that'd be good. Because that's what they just are
That's her
dealing with.
job. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could get in touch with her and see whether she'd be willing to come back and do that.
February. Good one, Victoria.
I had an idea a few months ago, and this would be put on Charity since she's tied with Eco School Network and Rosemont Middle School, is I think it would be really cool to have young people in one of these sessions, maybe 4 or 5 young people or whatever, answer a question they're given previously as to what things do you think we could do to help mitigate climate change or something to that effect. Young people, are the future. And a lot of these young kids are really sharp today. And I think they've probably got a lot of ideas to offer. And it would be great to hear from the youth. And I
Well,
really
I
do
think Grace is watching tonight. She went in person like Victoria did. She
Right.
may have had somebody from their group at the high school try to join tonight. So there may be more than one youth advisory person watching online. So have any of you, did you get a chance to chat with Grace when she came to our goal setting?
Mhm.
So
I did briefly,
Yeah.
but it also seems like it might be a great place to have Charity's green team come in as well. And then if Grace were willing to come in or other folks from the high school, uh, that would be helpful too. So, so it seems like that's a great idea. That might be something to try to do for March and see whether
March,
Charity could help organize that. And
perfect.
it would be a good follow-up to the session that I would have done in January.
One point on that, doing that in March, is it the first Tuesday in March?
Oh, why don't you
We
do
would
the
normally do second
Second.
Well,
Tuesday.
the problem is that that's finals week.
and spring break? Why don't you move the youth to February and put the tree canopy in March?
Okay.
Just because
The
of
spring
finals.
break and finals and all that stuff.
Yeah.
March is still early enough to plant trees too.
So you got your first quarter for next year.
I still think it would be great to have something on water conservation.
Mhm.
I know.
April,
Did you find
April.
anybody, Mike, who was kind of knowledgeable and was interested in potentially doing that?
Well, we did one this year. Chris
Oh,
Hollenbeck from Clackamas River
Solomon
Water
did it.
Providers.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
got $85 out of watching that one.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that was good.
don't need
Yeah,
that.
I got toilet rebate. That was the best day ever.
Who had suggested sustainable and safe foraging?
Ooh,
I think that might have been Debbie.
Debbie? Yeah.
okay. Why don't you put that on for did we get up to April then for the
That
water?
sounds like April.
The foraging might be April and then water conservation in May.
Well, if we've already done the water conservation, we don't really need to do that again, probably.
So you
Well-
moved the young people to February, right?
Yeah.
Well, the
April,
thing
February.
is, we have to keep in mind, I think for the water conservation presentation, there was one person outside this group in attendance.
Okay.
So I don't think it hurts to repeat things at different times of the year because some of these topics we're dealing with will never go away. They're always going to be important. And it's like marketing. Marketing is in your face constantly, all the time.
I
Well,
agree
it
with you,
seems
Terry.
to if we were to really kind of deal with the question of runoff, that might be really fascinating to look at. And maybe we could get somebody to water pricing and the way in which that then affects public use of water in communities as a vehicle for water conservation. Is there anybody in the city who could conceivably make a presentation about that in the city staff?
Or somebody with our water district.
Uh-huh.
Put it on the list and then so
Yeah.
this gets you through May, correct? Or is that April?
I think that would be Debbie, the foraging could be April, and then that could be May. Although I think one of the topics that came up was backyard and container gardening. Is that something that you could do, Victoria?
No, but
Okay.
I could ask if Sherry Shane could do that. The last person that we had from Master Gardeners, I thought was not a dynamic speaker.
It was interesting, but yeah, she wasn't dynamic.
Just, yeah. So I don't think I would want to do that again that way with her.
But maybe focusing on container gardening in itself would be interesting.
Yeah, I'm not a pro on that. I'm really not. But
Hey, I want to check in with the group because we've got 5 minutes. Now
Okay.
we don't have any city staff online. We don't have a council representative. Do you want to end at 7:30 or do you want to go 5 more minutes to wrap up? 5 or 10 minutes.
I'm
So
fine.
I mean, just so that we can get some substantial completion, send a couple emails to finalize things. And that, so that we can do a presentation to council December 12th. And then we wouldn't have to have a December meeting. Unless we did, except for an education thing to, for gift wrap reduction.
Yeah, that's tied up. And one main question I got is who is going to wordsmith and submit the final annual report? I'm
Well-
happy to do it. I've done it for several years in a row, but if somebody wants to take that on, they can.
I guess I've been assuming that you and Kim were going to do that. Just in terms of like who was taking the notes.
I'm
All right,
happy to do it.
Terry and I'll do that, and then we'll send it to the group if you're all good with it. That'll be, and then when we go to council on the 12th, I can give the highlights of that, or, just to say, hey, this is what we did, or Terry can. Then, did everybody read the minutes so we can approve those? We waited for you, Victoria.
I did read them. They're fine.
Okay, anybody,
Very complete,
everybody
very
good with the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, so minutes are approved, so that way those can be posted up, from tonight, for tonight's meeting. So Terry and I will wordsmith the annual report of accomplishments, and then I need, because I'm starting to hit the wall here. I need some help on articulating the goals so that those are clean. And I think we kind of divvied those up, didn't we? Of who was going to help write what?
No, I
believe
think
so.
it sounded like Terry's going to write them.
The goals?
Well, what we just talked about this evening.
Yeah, if you've got notes, Greg, on what you've done, the only notes that I've got are what Kim sent and then those items that I sent you. So,
I can send you. Yeah, I can send you the things that I've got.
yeah, send me what you've got and we'll put it together. It'll always go back to you guys for review, so it's no biggie, but
Okay, and I'll send you what I just, the things I was able to type while we were talking in red, I just, I was able to kind of bookmark the order of the goals and the highlights.
Mhm.
But I realized my energy level is leaving me on the, yeah.
No problem.
All right.
Yeah.
All right,
Just
so,
go around.
if we're, and so it sounds like we're all good about showing up on the 12th, so I can ask Kathy to make sure we're on the agenda
Mhm.
for council. You're all good with it?
Mhm.
And then we can, we can have an online strategy of who's gonna do what, but do you all think 15 minutes is enough time for us to do a quick, here's where we were at with council, here's what we're asking you to do, and then have each SAB member like Victoria, Debbie, and Charity come up and say, these are why these things are important to us. Can we do that in 15 or should we ask for 20?
Well, if you ask for 20, you're gonna fill 20 minutes.
15 is fine.
Yeah, 15 is
Okay.
good.
All
Can
right,
I ask questions afterward?
okay. All right.
Great.
Ha. It's a lot, and I have to say I'm gonna miss you guys next year, and I'm so incredibly thankful for all of you and all the work you've done, and please give yourself a pat on the back and eat some chocolate tonight or hot cocoa or whatever.
Edibles.
You've all really contributed to some amazing progress, and Terry can testify. He was like, "Why are we doing this?" It's like, be patient, grasshopper. It'll get better.
I don't know that word.
Well, we'll miss you too as well. So come back and visit anytime.
Yes. That's a good crew.
Comment spot's always open.
Yeah. There's a lot of energy in this group, and I hope, one issue that I had that I thought of that hasn't been addressed is the selection of new members for advisory boards does not ever include members on the existing advisory board. So members are chosen for advisory boards without anybody on that board knowing who is interviewing. I would suggest, I think one member of an existing advisory board should be on that selection process or reviewing the applications,
Oh my God, yes.
Sensible.
because they're not. And it makes no sense to me that the council's picking people for boards they really don't know squat about what's going on.
Well, the counselor isn't really just the mayor.
Yeah. So That could be a proposal. I could, get up and state that before council. I don't know, but I think it's important, especially it's germane right now since new members are being reviewed.
Is that a goal or is that a proposal?
Oh, we shouldn't add any more goals, I don't think, but it's a
Okay.
goal to me, but I can make it a proposal.
Proposal.
Yeah. Well,
All
why
right.
don't you, as the outgoing co-chair of this board, why don't you talk to Mary and talk to John Williams?
Mhm. Yeah, I will do it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Terry.
I will.
Thanks.
I love the expediency of this group too.
Get her done.
Okay. Well, with that said, it is 7:30. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
And Terry, if you could email me your list, if you haven't already, that you started out the evening with, just so
Yeah,
can
I sent it to you.
You did? Okay, great.
Yeah. Let me know if you didn't get it and I'll send it again. No problem.
Okay, thanks. Will do.
Mhm.
I'll
All right.
do to that right